Hello. Hi everyone. I hope you're all doing okay. I'm actually not very well. Days ago, I noticed that I was like chesty and coughing with like, and I was, that's a bit strange. That doesn't happen. And then the next day, which was yesterday, I had the worst what's it called? My tonsils really hurt, and then I noticed I had an infection, and I had to go to the shops today, and I was really breathless, like titled my alarm because I did a COVID test just to be sure. I don't want to be around anybody if I have that. Yeah, and I have a temperature, so I'm just waiting for the doctors to reopen for me to ask them. Sometimes when my asthma gets bad, I need steroids, and I don't really want any. But anyway, that is not why I'm making this video, but just excuse my dirty hair. Just put lipstick on just to be. I did that before I went out, and I have a temperature, and I haven't taken paracetamol yet. So basically, just excuse if I'm any weirder than usual. But okay, so the reason why I slept at 5 in the morning last night, and it wasn't that much better the day before, and it's because I've taken my curtains down. I'm going to be putting some blinds. But the point is, no curtains, and it was the full moon, and the neighbors' lights and everything. So I haven't slept for 2 nights properly. And then last night, the reason why I'm saying this is because last night I started thinking about how we get some people get gaslighted by the medical professionals, um, and I just couldn't stop in my head thinking about it and wanting to put it on YouTube. So that's why before I make my soup, have my paracetamol, I did make a tea. I thought I'd get this out because I know I'm not going to sleep tonight either thinking about it. So, first of all, what is gaslighting? The definition on Google says to manipulate someone using psychological methods into questioning their own sanity or powers of reasoning. People who are not well deal with this, and if you haven't, I'd be surprised, and that's great. But if even if one person hasn't, they'll know somebody who has. It does happen quite a lot, unfortunately, and it happens to everyone. It doesn't really matter what color, race, age, like it really doesn't matter. It happens to everyone, but it does happen more likely to happen to people who are young women, like minorities, the elderly, people who look well. I mean, the list goes on, but I mean, so there are that it happens to everyone, but it does happen a lot to these specific type of people. And I say that it happens a lot to people who look well, but it also happens to people who are not well, who are obviously not well. I have an example of my father. My father had a brain tumor, and it wasn't cancerous, but it was a brain tumor, and it was stuck to his arteries, so they could never take it all out. And when we first found out, long story short, he had to have a very, very long operation, like 9-hour operation or something ridiculous. And they didn't know if he was going to come out of that alive, and luckily he did. Yeah, but he had this brain tumor, and it would grow again, and so he had to have operations. He even had to have chemo, even though it wasn't cancerous, just to keep it shrunk. And so he was not a well man. He did a lot of things, but in between, like he would be better for a while when the tumor was minimal, and then it would affect him when it got bigger. And at one point, he started just being in bed all the time, and that really wasn't like him. He was a very outgoing, social. I mean, he didn't like being at home. He was out all the time. But then, he was at home, and he was in bed, and he was not well. And also one of his eyes, you could see there was pressure on it, and he could hardly open one of his eyes. And obviously, it would have been the tumor putting pressure on his eyes. I mean, any idiot would know that. And yet, the hospital specialist did nothing. And they would say that he was depressed. They'd say, well, there's nothing wrong with you just have depression. And I'd be saying, could you please do a scan, and etc., etc. And I was in my early 20s. We weren't familiar with this kind of thing. We kind of like did listen to the doctors and then we didn't. We were like, come on, this is anyway. So what happened was a while after, when they finally listened to us, they found out that he had cancer. The tumor had turned into cancer, and that was it. He only had weeks, days to live. So my point there is that sometimes you can be very unwell and you can still get gaslighted. Was it gaslit or gaslighted? Oh yeah, and I know somebody who suffers with anxiety, and whenever she goes to the doctor about a physical ailment, they always put it down to her psychological. And there are times where it's definitely nothing to do with her mental illness, it's to do with something that is physical, and it hasn't been manifested by mental illness. It is just a physical situation. And the doctors just never ever really bother. They might do a couple of tests, and what she finds when she looks at her notes later is they might say something to her, but then they'll write in the notes, oh yeah, she came here really anxious, she was worried about this, but there's nothing wrong with her. And there are things that are wrong. You know, there are times where her iron levels have been low or other things. And she said to me the other day that, and I realized that she doesn't go to the doctors very often. And she doesn't go because she feels embarrassed and she gets very, very stressed about it because they don't believe her when she wants to talk about something physical. They put it all down to mental. They will not look at the physical. So the reason why I came on here is because I wanted to say that I feel there are a few things that we can do that can help not get gaslighted. It will make it more difficult for doctors to. I'm just going to get my notes because I'm going to get out of it. One thing I want to say also is that there are many, many doctors out there who are very kind, very professional, very caring, very consistent, insistent, believe what you say, they listen, they follow up, So I am not saying that all doctors are bad, definitely not. There's some great. I am so, thankful for some great doctors out there. But I'm just talking about specific ones who gaslight. And the other thing is, like I said, it's really difficult sometimes to know that we're being gaslighted. I mean, when I look back, I'm like, oh my God, that happens so much. Because we're ill and we're not well, and maybe it's taken all our energy just to, mentally and physically, to just get to the hospital after months and maybe years of waiting. And then to be told, I mean, I remember when, gosh, this is years ago when I didn't know what I had, and I kept saying, but I can't even write with my hands, or, and they'd say, well, we've done the test, there's nothing wrong with your hands, or all that kind of stuff. And even to now, that was about 10 years, no, it wasn't 10 years ago, but it was, I don't know, 6 years ago, 7 years, I can't remember. And then when I mention it now, they just say it's old age. Yes, I'm 51. But when this happened to me originally, I was 40. It wasn't old age, basically. Basically, even the most confident of us loses confidence and questions ourselves and thinks, am I really making this up? Is there really nothing wrong with me? Is this possible? Is it in my head, or is it something that really isn't a big deal? Is there something wrong with me? And even the most positive of us can start to get depressed. And some of us will not even bother going to the doctors because we'd be embarrassed. We'd be like, oh, they're going to think, oh, there she is again, it's all in her head. And all this stress of, is the doctor going to listen to me? Is the doctor going to believe me? Are they going to find anything? Are they just going to give me 1 minute and say, no, we're not even going to bother seeing you? Because that's happened to me before. There's no point, there's nothing, blah, blah, blah. All this kind of stuff, and it makes us depressed, it makes us doubt ourselves, and it feeds our illness. It makes us more ill because we don't have any support. We don't have anybody who believes us. We are left in the dark. We are left alone. We are left to be made to feel stupid for asking, all sorts of things. It's just really, really bad. So I'm gonna give taking me 10 minutes, but so I'm going to give 4 tips that I think are handy. The first one is, if you can, take a friend or a family member with you, because it's much more difficult for a doctor to gaslight two people. I mean, it's just difficult for anybody to gaslight two people in any situation. It doesn't even have to be medical. But it would be really good if you take someone with you. Now, this is going to sound very controversial, and I am kind of feel a bit funny saying it, but it is still, I can't think of the word, but this still happens in this day and age, and in the medical world, where if you're a woman, how do I put it? Like, basically, it would be better. I know. I mean, it doesn't have to be, but this is going to sound so anti-feminist and so sexist. But it would be better if you took, if you're a woman, you took a person who has much more masculine traits. I do think that helps. Unfortunately, in this day and age, yeah. But obviously, if you can't, that's fine. Take somebody with you. Still, it is much harder for anybody to gaslight two people. And I'm not saying that men don't get gaslighted. They do. They do all the time. But still, women do more. But I'm not saying men don't either. They definitely do a lot. Yeah, it's more difficult for them to gaslight two people, and also they're kind of like on show. There's somebody else there. They can't make themselves look bad in front of a witness. Do you know what I mean? So it is better to take somebody with you. So that's my first tip, is to take somebody with you. The second tip is to record your consultation. I'm aware that some places you can't, so I'll get to that. So basically, in the UK, it's legal to record your consultations. But, of course, the doctor does have to give their consent. Now, ever since I had brain fog, so for the last year and a half or so, however long it's been, 2 years, and ever since I found this out, I always record my consultations. I always ask them first, and they always say yes, of course. And actually, they're much nicer because they realize that I have, and I tell them why. I say because of brain fog and memory, that I can't take it all in. And they are really nice. One guy like took my phone and just started talking into it. Really, really lovely people. It's great. For people who gaslight you, it will make them be much more careful. Again, it's as if they have a witness, they're on show. This recording could, in theory, be kind of used against them. Yeah, so they will be more careful. They're not going to be gaslighting you. People have always said yes, apart from the last person I saw, who was, yeah, he was gaslighting me because, yeah, I'll tell you why. Yeah, he was. So basically, I asked if I could record it, and I'd forgotten to record it straight away. So when he started talking, and then he said something very interesting. Basically, he was saying that Plaquenil, we don't know if it's a placebo effect or not, which is really a kind of I can't think of the word. And then when he said that, I was like, oh my god, I should be recording this. So I didn't do it very, I said it then. I said, oh, hold on, I need to record it. Of course, he didn't want to be recorded saying something like that. And so he said he'd rather not. And I said, it is legal. He said, yes, but not without my consent. So it was like, fine. And then, but he was being very dismissive before that as well. That's why he was saying, oh, well, we don't know if it is this or that. Because I was asking him or telling him, I don't know what I was doing. I can't remember now. But whatever it was, he dismissed it. And so he was saying, well, we don't know. It could be a placebo effect. And then I wanted to have tests done because I was on Plaquenil, hydroxychloroquine, and then he was saying, oh, well, tests won't even show anything, not really, we just go by one. But he was just being he was a little bit of a gaslighter, I would think. And so he refused. Now, had I thought about this before, which is where I'm going to get to next, too, had I got a pen and paper out and said, oh, okay then, but would you mind, I'm just going to write notes because I can't remember. Yeah, okay, you don't want it recorded, but for myself, I'm going to write notes. There's nothing illegal about writing notes. And if I write notes and repeat what he's saying, he's going to kind of see that what he's saying is wrong, or he shouldn't be saying it, or he should be more forthcoming, and he should be more listening more and helping more. So basically, for people, I know in America there are some states that do not allow recording. It's illegal. I don't know about other countries, so I'm sure there are some countries that and some cities and stuff that will not let you record. And in that situation, I say take a pen and paper. And as they start talking, so for example, in hindsight, and I thought about this before, when I went to the hospital in 2018 or 17 or something, and they were investigating me having PMR, and I went to the rheumatologist, and I sat down to tell him what had been happening in the last year that they hadn't seen me. And he said, stop there. We're not going to do I'm not going to listen. I'm not going to listen like that. I'm just going to do one test and then I'll call you back. So I'll get you this test. And that was it. Had I said, oh, okay, could you just hold on a minute? I just want to write that down. So you're not going to do anything until this test. He's not going to feel good about that. Because he's not even letting me say hello. I feel like this. That is wrong. So I feel like if you get a pen and paper, it will really, really help. So that was tip number 2. I've only got 2 more tips. Or have I even? I don't remember. This was it's like at 3 in the morning. Oh yeah. So tip number 3 is what I did after that guy told me that I couldn't record him and he wouldn't do any blood tests. I said, fine, thank you, goodbye. And then I went to my GP and I said, I want to be referred. And he said, the only reason I worry about you being referred is it's going to take months, so nobody's going to see you. And I said, don't worry, they're not going to see me that soon. And what happened? I got a letter in the post from that doctor that I saw, the rheumatologist. He gave test results, even though he didn't take any tests. So he had just pretended. He had copied test results from what would have been, I don't know, 8 months ago or something before that. He put that in there. And I just hadn't received when they were going to make another appointment. And I said to my GP, look, this guy's even saying these test results and he didn't even do tests. And my GP was shocked. Anyway, he said, okay, I'll do it. I'll refer you to another hospital. And then I get the letter. That rheumatologist said, because I was having psychotic reaction to Plaquenil, he said, give it a break for 10 days and go back into it and we will see you and see how you are. So then the appointment he gave to see how I am was for 5 months later. So he was expecting me to deal with all this. And my GP referring me to a new hospital came back with an earlier date than the rheumatologist had done. So there was no problem there. If somebody is gaslighting you, ask to be seen by another doctor, by another specialist. Obviously, it'd be easier to do it in the same hospital that you're at, and if that's not possible, ask for another hospital. I will have to travel a little bit to the other hospital, but I don't care because I want to be in safer hands. Is that? And number 4, trying to see if my brain can remember without me looking at the notes. Yes. Speaking of notes. Another great thing to do, which I know is a bit of a bother because we're not feeling well and the last thing we want to do is have to make this effort. But unfortunately, I wish it was some other way, but unfortunately, we have to advocate for ourselves at times a lot. So my other tip would be to write notes of how you're feeling every day. And it don't have to be a big thing. It can be very short. It could just be, say you have some symptoms that you have on a regular basis. So maybe there are 4 symptoms that are the worst, that the doctors don't really take seriously. Um, so you could do it for a few weeks and write the symptoms and say, and your pain levels, or, stuff like that, depending on what it is. If it's pain, you could say, on this day, I had this much pain, I had to take this much medication, and I hadn't carried anything or done anything or whatever. And also, if you could put examples of other people, so you could say, yeah, I don't know, you're walking with a friend and you felt you were having a great time and suddenly you felt faint and your friend had to call an ambulance, things like that. Or whatever your problems are, just write them down, and then when you go and they say, but we don't see anything wrong with you, and then we'd say, oh yeah, we scanned your shoulder, there's nothing wrong with it, and I'd say, but it's so painful, I have to sleep with a heat pad, I've had to change my bed, I have to take painkillers all the time, and if you write that down and they see that you've written it down. It's not just that you're telling them, you get the notebook out and you show them, and they say, if somebody has written a note and shows it to you, you'd be like, oh my God, this person is suffering so much. They have had to take the time to sit and write how they're feeling and what is happening to their body. And I feel there's something in that is more substantial. So if you're talking to somebody who's going to gaslight you, they're like, yeah. Oh, you're just imagining it. And it's like, but hold on, this is what happened this day and that day, and you're showing them. They can't kind of turn that down. That's my theory. So that's my 4 tips. I hope you find them helpful. And if you have any tips, please put them in the comments below, because we could all do with as much ammunition as we can, because it's not fair that we have to struggle with this when we're struggling with so much already. So I'm just going to read from what I've said. And please remember, there are many good doctors out there, and a good doctor will make you feel empowered and a little hopeful even. This is your body and your life, and you deserve as much care and attention as anyone else. If you feel there is something wrong, don't ever give up. Even if you need a friend or relative to go with you, or you need to change doctors 4 times, keep going until you find someone who will listen and not stop testing to get you the help you need. So please remember that. Do not give up, but don't let anybody gaslight you. And hopefully some of these tips would avoid being gaslit in the first place. Anyway, I hope this was useful, and I'm going to say goodbye now because I just am like this right now. Like, I need to go and lie down. Actually, I need to make some soup and then go and lie down. I really hope everybody is doing okay, and I'm sending you lots and lots of love, and I will see you soon.